Everyone, and welcome to How to Create an Effective and Engaging Email Marketing Strategy with Rebekah Miel. My name is Colin Main, and I'm a program manager at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit dedicated to enabling entrepreneurs from all over the world to realize their maximum potentials and grow. As you may have just seen in the chat, the Nasdaq Center, along with our partner Mentor Cloud, launched a free mentor matching platform for entrepreneurs called Mentor Makers. You can create your own advisory board to guide and inspire you with in-the-moment mentorship from topic experts and professionals dedicated to providing exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So find or become a mentor today by using the link in the chat. Mentorship matters to all entrepreneurs. Their success is dependent on it. Quick housekeeping, we're going to open up for a live Q&A at the end of the event, so please submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We hope to get to them all. Now, none of what we do here at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including Nasdaq, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, and BPM. We're humbled and grateful for their contributions. Now, during these still unique times, we're curious on how sentiment is among the entrepreneurs that we work with. So I'm going to start by launching a quick poll to just let us know how you're feeling about your business right now. Are you optimistic? Are you in survival mode? How are you feeling? We use this data to help inform the wellness programs that we should be providing for our entrepreneurs. So appreciate you sharing a little bit about how you're doing on a Friday. All righty. Let's end this poll, share those results. Okay, it looks like optimism's on the rise, but totally understand there's some just survival mode, a little bit of anxiety and some fear out there. So hopefully our session today with our expert will help alleviate some of those sentiments. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome in the chat to our special guest. Rebekah Miel is the founder and creative director at Miel Design Studio. Rebekah, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So happy to have you. Over to you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to switch to my presentation real quick. And then there we go. I've already seen some familiar names in the chat, so good to see you. And also hello for those of you that I haven't seen before. My name is Rebekah Miel, and I am the founder and creative director of Miel Design Studio. We're a full service design and marketing studio that works with B Corps, nonprofits, and other purpose-driven organizations. Some of our clients include Save the Children, Miracle Feet, and Cornell University. So I am just going to jump right in. I'm so excited to be talking about email marketing. I was working on my script for this the other day and just started. I could have talked about this for 4 hours, but got it down to 40 minutes about why email marketing is so important and how to create an effective and engaging campaign. So first of all, why is it so important? 1, you have direct access to your customer. 2, it is measurable. And 3, in the realm of marketing tools that you can use, it's pretty affordable and it has great ROI. But in particular today, I'm going to talk about how to build an effective and engaging email marketing campaign. So there are 4 steps to an effective and engaging email marketing campaign. The first is know your audience. The second is listen to your data. The third is have a strategy. And my favorite is stop the gimmicks. So first of all, know your audience. Who are you talking to? You can send emails all day, every day, and maybe you will see an increase in sales because of sheer volume. But if you want your customers to become super fans, you need to learn who they are. Email is a crowded space. You don't need to be the loudest or the most persistent. You just need to know who you're talking to and what you're trying to say. I was thinking about this earlier. I subscribe to probably hundreds, if not more, email newsletters just because I want to see trends that are going on and what other people are doing. But I realized there's only 3 that I check every day. It's like what I do first thing in the morning is I check these 3 newsletters that come out. And that is because they know my audience. They know their audience. They're speaking to me. So I seek out that email because it is the content that I am looking for. So I'll get into detail about how to do this later on, but it's very important to know who you're talking to. The second thing is listen to your data. Email marketing data is a gold mine. Unless you are brand new to the game, there is something in your data, whether or not you've looked at it already, there's always something new to uncover in your data that will help you learn more about your customers and what they are looking for. This can include anything from looking at analytics, click-throughs, unsubscribe rates, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later on. The next thing is to have a strategy. So if you know who you're talking to and you use your data, you can combine both of those to create a strategy. This will not only ensure that your content is consistent, but it will also set you up for success. A lot of people find email marketing overwhelming. And if you are starting with a strategy, you have a plan. So that means you only have to plan maybe once, twice a year, your overall annual content planning, and you don't have to start from square one. You're being proactive instead of reactive with your campaigns. Additionally, when you have a strategy, in that strategy, you can also define KPIs to help you measure the success of your campaign. And the fourth is stop the gimmicks. So it's 2022. You can ditch the clickbait. Email has been around for 30 years and we are all too savvy for clickbait titles. Instead, create concise and compelling subject lines that the reader will know what they're going to find inside your email and not be disappointed or frustrated by what they're clicking on versus what content they're getting. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to add in a couple of pro tips that I've learned along the 15 years that I've been doing email marketing. The subject line of your email is so important, if not more important than all of the rest of the content combined in this format. After your email is finished, after it's built, approved, you have images and all of that, I recommend spending at least 30 minutes or even an hour refining and tweaking your subject line. It is that important because if you send an email and nobody's interested in the subject line or knows that you're consistent and engaging, then it doesn't matter what the email says. So I wanted to show a few examples of how small changes can have big results, and then I'm going to go through a case study that shows how these 4 pieces sort of play out over the annual cycle. So this first section is 3 different clients that we had and how these small changes had big results. So this is a client of ours, which is Student Action with Farm Workers. And on the left, you can see their old design. It has a ton of content. It has a table of contents at the top. If your email is so long that you need a table of contents at the top, your email is just too long. It shouldn't have that. You should be able to navigate through it pretty quickly. And also it didn't really have clear buttons or anything like that. So on the right, we added some more color, some more space, buttons, and just this shift in one send changed their, they had a 3 times increase in opens and a 10 time increase in click-throughs because people knew where to click, what they were clicking on, and what the content was. This is another client of ours, the Pauli Murray Center in Durham, North Carolina. And on the left was their old design. It had an old look and feel. So we both worked with them on their overall look and feel and just cleaned up the email. This one has a longer introduction. I usually recommend that it be shorter because your goal is to drive your customers to your website. But in this case, there's often more storytelling with this client because they're a nonprofit. But this redesign meant that they consistently met their fundraising goal year after year. And lastly, we work with the Duke Alumni Center, and this was, they do a really fantastic job segmenting their audience, and they know who they're talking to, but there's often a lot of content that they want to say to that audience. So on the left is the old design, which is kind of tight, sort of hard to tell where you should click. There's too many options to click. So on the right, we just added some more space, pared down the text because, again, our goal is to get to the website, to get them to register, and just opened it up overall. And this is still a running test in progress. This is one of our newest projects, so we're still testing this out. But so far, the test that we ran showed that it was easier for the reader to navigate. So this is the case study that I want to run through. So Leaf and Limb is a client of ours. They are a tree care company in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they do incredible work. We've been working with them for several years to develop an email marketing campaign that is effective and engaging. So I'm going to walk through what the annual email marketing looks like for this particular client. And I'm going to go through some stats more at the end, but this is one of the examples that show that this process really works. On average, I was looking up the most current stats, and on average, a 30 to 35% open rate is considered a success. And we sent out an email for them this week. It is a very niche category about tree care, and it got a 54% open rate. So this really does work. So the main newsletter that we've created has an intro letter at the top, a video, 2 stories, and then usually a service CTA and 1 or 2 programming things at the bottom. That's it. There's not a long scroll. We try and keep it as short and concise as possible and on topic as well. So step 1 of this process is content creation. So the beginning of the year, usually we're doing content planning for the year. And we have a running list that we keep through the year. So we have a list to start with. There's a worksheet that I made for today's talk that has some questions that you can ask to get your, I think it's like you'd fill up about 15 slots. And then we move it to Airtable and put in each month for the year ahead, and then information about what should go in each section. We do it this way so that we can both add assets later, but also it's flexible. So we can check to be sure that we're not repeating like how-to content month after month or an update about the business month after month. We are mixing it up so that we reach all of our audiences. And because this email has a fairly high production value, it usually takes about 6 weeks from start to finish to do the video, write the articles, create all of the content connected with it. So we have to plan ahead so that we know we have the content that we need for when we're going to send it, and it's seasonally appropriate. We also plan content by looking at data from the previous year. What worked, what were our clients interested in, and then what didn't work. And then we also look for what might be holes in our current content. We have a general list of education that we want the customer to know. And if there's holes or things that customers have been asking for, we're sure to add that to the list. Ooh, that went too fast. If you are just starting out and you don't have data, there is this tool called Answer the Public, which is great for a number of reasons. I think you're limited to about 5 searches a day, but you can search in the search field and it will show you what people are searching for on Google right now. And this is beneficial for 2 reasons. 1, it can help you with content planning and finding what people are asking for, but also it helps you determine how users are talking about what they're searching for. So as we, as we grow our businesses and get more and more involved in the work that we do, our language can get more complex. We're talking about our methods, maybe with language that is internal to our own industry, but that might not be what people are searching for. So being able to find this tool or to use this tool to find out what people are actually saying and what they're searching for means that you can create article titles that will be SEO friendly as well. So another pro tip is that article titles are extremely important. So like subject lines, after you finish writing your content that's going to go in the newsletter, I recommend spending 30 minutes at least, maybe longer, revising your article title. And the article title on your website doesn't have to match the article title in your newsletter. So there can be one on your website that is more SEO friendly and has simple language, but if you know you're sending to a different segmented audience, you can have the title in your newsletter be different. So the next step in the cycle of email marketing is to analyze your data. So once you've done this for a few months, probably about 6 months, I wouldn't do it sooner than that if you're just starting out, you can analyze your data to see what the audience is interested in. Then also look at that, use what works, repeat that, and then improve what isn't working. Also, it's important to be mindful of, what else is going on in the world. That is very relevant right now. There could be other reasons that that something isn't performing well. So it's important to note that, like, maybe if you sent something out and it was a busy news cycle, or it was just not appropriate content at that time, it might not be that it isn't something your audience is interested in. They might just be distracted. So there are other ways to test for it. Listen to what they're asking for. Sometimes we send out a survey. We usually only do that about once every few years, depending on our client, because often it's wonderful, but often in surveys, people are just saying, this is great, and this is what I like. And the thing that is often more helpful is what is not working. Also, for data, you'll often hear email marketers talk about A/B testing. And I'm sure there are some cases where A/B testing subject lines works great for a client. But I have found that two things. One, it slows down your send. So if you aren't familiar with A/B testing, when you A/B test, you create 2 subject lines and you send out one, or you send both of them out and they run against each other. And whichever one gets more opens is the winner. And that's what gets sent out to the rest of the list. But there's usually a 2 to 3 day delay in that process. If you're product-based and it's not as timely, A/B testing is potentially would work better. But we have found, instead of A/B testing, we create 2 subject lines and then we resend to non-openers. So the first subject line that we think will appeal to a more general audience goes out with the main send, and then they get moved off the list. And then the second subject line gets sent to the non-openers. So we get to appeal to 2 different audiences with the same email send, and we're not losing that lag if somebody earlier on would be interested in that first subject line. Also, data has changed a bit recently because of the new privacy policies. If you've been running email marketing campaigns, I bet over the last 6 months, you've noticed that your click-through rates have just gone through the floor. I have clients whose previous click-through rates were in 20 and 30%, and then they've gone down to below 5%. That is simply because of the new privacy policies and not being able to track a user from your email to your destination. But there are other ways that you can track these metrics and engagement. So we add Google Analytics as a secondary tool. So because I recommend that you don't constantly, we'll talk about this a bit more later, but don't constantly email your audience, we know that when there's a send, we know when that is going to hit the website. So these, as you look across this analytics, all of these spikes on this page, the traffic is from a day we sent an email. So we can look at the data and pare it down to 1 or 2 days around that email send and look at what content is being clicked on the website, what the user's journey is, what they're interested in, and what actions they took. The next step, after you have been running a campaign for 6 months, or some of you might have been running it for a while, maybe even a year, I would say you can start to segment audiences and clean lists. I wouldn't do it any earlier than 6 months because the data might not be accurate. Again, it could just be timing of people added to the list and things like that. So 6 months or a year cycle, you can start to get more information about who your segment audiences can be and when you can clean a list. So as an example, with this client, I pull a segment every spring of people that haven't opened an email for the last 6 months. This is a separate list completely. They get a different send. And if they open the next newsletter send, I move them back to the regular list. I do this for about 6 months until I'm pretty sure that everybody has had a chance on that non-openers list to open an email. And then I send them one last, like, hey, do you still want to hear from us? And they can either, if they click or respond or open, then I move them back to the open list. There are some folks that do this automatically. There are some programs that do this automatically, but I really like to know the data, and I like to know when users are moving on and off our list. And these are not small lists. These are thousands and thousands of people. So, but I want to know if there's a pattern or anomaly. So I do this process. So if I pull, like, all of a sudden 50% of our list hasn't opened a newsletter, it means there's a red flag and I have to look and see what's happening. So I prefer to do this manually as well. And you'll start to see trends in different audience segments as well. And it's extremely important to pay attention to these segments. I was reading that HubSpot reported that marketers who use segmenting see a 760% increase in revenue, which is just a shocking number. But like I said earlier, with those 3 emails that I feel like know the content that I want, your readers want to feel heard and known. They want to not have to get content they're not interested in. So by segmenting them, you know who you're talking to and what you're saying. So with this particular client, we noticed that there was a secondary audience. So we created a segment of a pattern of clients who were not interested in the, like, more technical how-to details in our main newsletter, but in an informal and more authentic message. So we created this secondary newsletter called the Trichologist Tribune, and it's an email written by a senior staff member who is reporting directly from the field. And it's a lot more casual in tone. There's actually very few CTAs or click-throughs in this, but it performs really well because it is a snapshot of what's happening right now, and a lot of our readers find it very accessible. So the last section in the email cycle of email marketing is automation. There are a lot of different ways that you can apply automation to your emails. So I talked about cleaning lists. You can use automation to clean lists. You can use it to create a welcome or nurture series. You can use it to find optimal send times for when any in particular user typically opens their email. But for this client, we realized that after about a year and a half, we'd created this library of evergreen content that was, in this example, the cycle of a tree, from why is it important, why are trees important, how do you select a tree, how do you plant a tree, how do you prune a tree, etc. So we had an email course that we call this called Trichologist 101. It is an automated series that readers opt into and get a new email from the series every 2 weeks. The amazing thing about this is we created a 14-step automation with creating no extra content. This was already content that we had. It took a few days to figure out the pattern and the puzzle of the sequence and to set up the automation, but other than that, it was already ready to go. And the other incredible thing is some of this is content that these readers have already seen, but because it is formatted in a different way, they're engaging with it. And this particular series, I think, usually has between a 60 to 70% open rate and just consistently really high click-throughs as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can repurpose your content to keep users engaged beyond just a newsletter or sales email or a nurture email. And in this case, because users are deciding to opt in, it's their choice, they want to learn this information, then they end up engaging with it more. And the other added wonderful piece is by the time a potential customer has gone through this series, they're already an educated customer. So there's a lot less friction in the sale. They know why this is valuable. They know what goes involved in this process, et cetera. But wait, there's more. So the other thing that we do for this client is we've created a paper lead gen. There's a ton of lead gen that you see as pop-ups on email, every website that you go to, Facebook ads, Instagram. There's a lot of ways to gather emails using lead gen. But in this case, we sort of leveled up what our lead gen was and created an 18-page booklet. So this is top 12 tips for happy, healthy trees. And this is a bit of an investment, but studies have shown that the ROI on email marketing is like $38 to $44 for every dollar that you spend. So it was worth it to invest in this document to get people to sign up for the newsletter. So it walks through the 12 tips, and then the last page, it asks if you want to sign up for the Treecologist 101 series or if you want to sign up for the newsletter. And it also helps to, whether or not they sign up for the newsletter, just educate the customer as well. Also, don't forget to have fun. With this client, last year, we decided to make an app, a fake app called Timber. A lot of people thought it was, not a lot of people, some people thought it was real, but Timber is the first and only online dating app designed specifically for trees. And this was a lot of fun, both to interact with our customers at this point, the readers, because, you know, last year was rough. It was nice to have something fun to show up in your inbox, but also it was really fun to work on as a team. The staff got together and made a video about, you know, trees are lonely and they want to connect. And then we made interfaces with how you can swipe right on your perfect match of a tree. And it was, so Timber is our solution to ensure that your tree can branch out and meet someone new. So we got to use all of our puns and humor that we don't always get to use. Also, this method, I just want to go back to this real quick. This method has proven time after time. So I was talking just this week with a client that I have been doing some consulting work with, and with just a few of these tweaks applied to her email marketing, she doubled her open and click rate within 2 months. And like I said earlier, on average, 30% is a good open rate. And with this client, the case study that I just showed with Leaf and Limb, we're consistently over 50% with our segments and over 60 to 70% with those targeted automations as well. So for the last little bit, I wanted to walk through a couple of different sections. So one is the state of email in 2022. And then I have a few lists that make up like my top 10 do's and don'ts for email marketing. So the first thing for the state of email in 2022, number one, analytics are changing right now. And this is because of the change in privacy policies. So like I said, you'll see your click-throughs start to go down, but there are other ways to track engagement. That can be, like I said, using Google Analytics and checking the day of the send, checking on opens, listening to what your readers respond to. A lot of times give them an option to reply to your email, listen to what they're saying. So there are other ways to track your analytics. Oh, and the other thing is you can use custom bit.ly links, which can still be tracked in your email if there's, and then you can add different or short links. It doesn't have to be bit.ly, short links that are trackable. And you can segment those as well. So if you're sending different links to different segments, then you know which is performing better in your different email segments as well. The second thing is data attrition is on the rise. That sounds like a mouthful, but data attrition is just that needing to clean your lists. with things like the Great Resignation, people's life situations changing, emails are changing, not so much with personal emails, but more with work emails. So I guess it depends on who your subscribers are. But I typically do that thing of cleaning my list once a year with my clients, but I probably will start looking at it closer to every 6 months. And I really have been looking at it more and more with every send. Most email products show why different bounces happen. And if it's clear that that email has been suspended, I'll just go ahead and move them off. It's important though, when you move them off the list, to make sure that you delete them, you don't unsubscribe them. If you unsubscribe a user from a platform, that means that it's a lot more difficult to get them resubscribed. If you just delete them and for some reason it was an accidental removal and they want to sign back up, they can go ahead and just re-opt in with the normal channels. If you unsubscribe them, it's a much more complicated process. Don't do this though with folks who have unsubscribed, because that will be violation of CAN-SPAM, just if you are cleaning the list on your own. If they have already decided to unsubscribe, just leave them on that unsubscribe list because they don't want to hear from you. The third thing is ADA compliance is essential. So I'll share a tool a little bit later, but it is really important now, always, but now there's more and more of a focus on emails being ADA compliant. So that's both making sure that you have image descriptions and making sure that your colors are accessible, your fonts are readable, things like that. So ADA compliance is very important. The fourth thing is to be authentic. There is, it's been an interesting couple of years, and I think that there's a lot more interest in being authentic and hearing from owners, hearing from teams, hearing from just the people who do the work rather than just sales. Authenticity is really important. And that's things like storytelling and being funny. And, your customers like to celebrate your wins and your failure. Well, not celebrate your failures, but like to hear about that transparency as well. And the fifth thing is personalize your emails, but not too much. So the easiest personalization is just putting in the first name. So dear whoever, that's easy. You can also segment if you're a product based on what sales behaviors the reader has had in the past, but don't personalize it too much. Like I've had experiences where I'll just be looking for something. I have 9-year-old twins, and I'll be like looking for sneakers for them, and I'll put it in a shopping cart, and like 15 minutes later I get an email that's like, hey, did you forget this? Some of that is helpful in the long run because honestly I probably did forget, but if it happens consistently over and over, I feel like I don't want to complete that sale, and also I feel like they know too much. We all know that I know that the internet knows all of my data, but I don't want to be reminded about that in my email all the time. So personalize it so that it seems custom, but don't go overboard. 5 things to avoid. So these are pitfalls that will make your strategy ineffective and will have users seek out the unsubscribe button very quickly. The first thing is don't sell right away. So most of the emails that I showed today, we often have an intro letter or a description of what we're talking about in that particular send. I would include, a very clear CTA so that folks know how to engage with you. But if you start selling right away, or if you only sell, or if you're only selling in the subject line and it's not specifically a product on sale, then that really devalues the email. It's like yelling. The second thing is don't oversend. A lot of email marketers will talk about like sending as much as you want to make sure that you're seen in an inbox. And that, yes, that is a strategy, but again, you might see an increase in sales because of just the sheer amount of emails that you're sending out. But one, that is a lot of content production on your side. And two, readers get tired of that. They don't want to see your name come up over and over and over and over again in your inbox. So don't oversend as well. 3, don't let your list get stale. We've already talked about this, about how to clean lists and why it's important right now because of data attrition. But also when your lists are stale, your data is not accurate. If your lists are if you're consistently cleaning your lists and make sure that it's your most engaged readers, then you know more about what your reader is interested in. If they get stale, then you're getting false information. You might have a low open rate or not enough click-throughs or just getting the wrong information, and that can just be frustrating to deal with. I know that it is hard to choose to delete users from your list. Like we talked about that ROI earlier, and you worked really hard to get them on your list. But I promise if they're not engaging and if they're not the right audience, then they aren't providing that ROI and they aren't providing you with the right information. The 4th thing is don't forget a clear CTA. So I said at the top, don't sell right away, but make sure somewhere, probably above the fold, above the first scroll, there is a clear call to action. And this can be a couple of things. It can be a read more, or it can be a service or product CTA, but you want to make it easy for your subscriber, your customer, to know how to interact with you. If you just send them like the Tree College Tribune, that's a secondary letter where there's not always a clear CTA. If you only sent that, they wouldn't know like, what services do you offer? Or how do I reach out to you? What is your product? You need to make sure that your customers know the easiest way to work with you so that it doesn't cause friction. And the 5th thing is don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Don't try to add like that example of the table of contents at the top and a widget on the side with social media and all sorts of extra things. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Make sure that it is, have a lot of white space. Make sure that there is a clear CTA, clear buttons, images if it works for your brand. Just keep it simple. Also, there has been a trend to start using GIFs or GIFs in email. Those typically make emails just email. The technology behind email is not complicated. It's like a very old way of coding. If you overcomplicate that or slow it down, it can just break or not display on some things, and it just is not a consistent message across all of your users. So I would avoid using those unless you have a really compelling reason, or it can be a really short loop as well. These are 5 favorite email tools. CoSchedule is great for a subject line tester. They also have a headline analyzer. The subject line tester is not as robust, but it is really good to give yourself a framework for testing those subject lines. You can just use a Word doc or an email doc, but if I'm using CoSchedule, I think a little bit more strategically. There's like a score that goes up and down about what I'm trying to create. Headline Analyzer is more robust, and it actually connects to what people are searching for in Google right now and gives you an SEO score. So that one is really helpful for pulling out those headlines and then deciding how you want to change that in your email as well. Webaim.org is an accessibility checker. So that's the ADA compliance. It checks contrast with colors and font sizes as well. Answer the Public, we talked about earlier. That's finding out what people are searching for and how they're searching it on Google right now. And for inspiration, really good emails it's a great collection of just email layouts that you can browse. And lastly, because we are designers first, I wanted to add some design tools. You can use the design tools in your whatever email marketing software you have, but sometimes it's helpful to add other things to it as well. So Canva, you can use for design and layout. Just don't lay out the whole email. Make sure you use the tool in your email for accessibility and responsiveness, but you can create headers or secondary assets, things like that. Unsplash, I love Unsplash. They have beautiful photos. I used them in the presentation today. Noun Project has really great icons, so you can use that for something as simple as an arrow or a button, or more complex iconography for infographics. Coolers is really cool. It is a color picker, so you can make sure your colors are consistent. If you're not sure how to get your colors from your website, you can make sure they're consistent across your website and your email. And they also have color palettes, so you can extend your colors if you need it for, or test it when you're working against the accessibility, the ADA compliance. And then you can also see other palettes that people are creating. And I love that part because I could look at colors all day. And Pixlr is an online photo editor. I know a lot of folks have software that can edit photos, but you can use this on the fly. It's a browser editor. And with that, we're at the end. I just wanted to say thanks to the Nasdaq Center for having me today. And I am happy to answer any questions about email marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebekah. What a great overview.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, for everybody looking for links for those resources, this deck will be distributed. So after the event, so hang tight. I tried to drop some of the links as I was keeping up with you into the chat, but again, we'll get all of those things. So before we get started with Q&A, I'm going to launch a quick poll as you think about your questions and drop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. One last poll on what's keeping you up at night. These poll responses help us understand what courses we should be offering over the next month or so to help you, the entrepreneurs that we serve. So thanks for participating, and we're going to jump into these questions in a second. But it looks like marketing and sales are at the top of the key, and no wonder, because you showed up for this email marketing course. Rebekah, yeah, there we go. All right, let's jump into some questions. First question, how many emails are appropriate for a welcome series?
So that depends. It sort of depends on the industry and the product, whether you're product-based or service-based, but I think somewhere between 3 to 5. I would also I would say closer to 3. And I would let the reader know how many emails are going to be in that series so that they're not like, am I going to get these forever when I just signed up for your newsletter? Saying like, you know, in these 3 emails, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this. Plus, then they know what to look forward to as well.
Great advice. How does this process change when you have a very small email list and small number of people accessing your website? Less than 50 people on the email list and only a handful of website visitors a week. Analytics seem a little bit less reliable with a small sample size. Yeah,
I'm curious if that means that you want to grow the list or it's a known small audience. Analytics are percentages, so if it's small and not growing, and it's intentionally that small, the data will be accurate because it is a percentage of what people are interested in. If it is something that you want to grow, then, you know, some of the lead gen options, but I would just consider how much you need to message a smaller group like that, because the smaller group is probably known to each other and the content they're accessing. So I would probably just message them about once a month, but I think that the data is still relevant in that case.
Great. How do you mail how did the 12-tip newsletter do? How many went out? How many signed up?
For the handout, so we've printed a few thousand. A lot of those go out with sales on sales calls, and it's kind of hard to track, but thousands at this point. It performs really well. It is helpful because, like I said, it helps educate the customer before they even sign up. And I don't know what the exact conversion is. This is making me think I should probably have a trackable link in the back of the book now. But it has shown an increase in newsletter signups, and it's really well received. People talk about it a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then for anybody who want more resources on direct to consumer mailing information, one of our good friends and authors, Stu Heinecke, wrote a book called How to Get a Meeting with Anybody or Anyone. How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. So check that out because it has really creative ways of marketing in mailboxes, which isn't dead.
No, that's very true. It's not. Email, like I talk about email marketing being important, but direct mail is so important because it's less cluttered than your inbox.
I know, I get excited that with anything that's not a bill or junk. So
yeah,
you'll at least get my eyeballs.
Exactly. I will look at it. It's true.
All right. What email automation software do we need to organize all of this, or do you suggest?
So there is a new email marketing software product like every day. I feel like I'll be talking to somebody and they're like, oh, have you heard of this one or this one? I prefer Constant Contact. It's a little bit of it's been around for a while. And the reason why I prefer working with them is because they have, there are certain things with email marketing providers and how they rank on their sends. And because Constant Contact has been around for long enough, they have a really great send rate and things go to spam less. And they have compliance, like they've figured out all of this stuff to make it successful, but the automation is a little bit clunky. There are a lot of other tools that specifically, automation in email is a fairly new thing. So there are a lot of newer tools that have been built with automation as the original goal rather than an added in product. So if you're just doing, like for example, if you have a course and you need to have an automated series of course content that goes out, there are other tools that are better. So it really depends on the industry and the goal, but there are a lot of options for automation now.
Totally. And the size of the list, goals for the size of the list, pricing, elasticity, all of that have to go into it. So
pricing, yeah, that's a good point. And there's different pricing models if it's like per send or per user or per list, all of that.
Yeah. So I guess it depends. I'm going to try to expand on this one, but the question is, how do you identify KPIs? And what I think, and feel free to add color to this, but what I think they mean is like, how do you go into a campaign thinking about the target numbers if you're still sort of new to it?
Mm-hmm. So I don't usually have like, this needs to be X%. What I want to see is growth year over year on the KPIs. There's a point where that will start to, the growth will become smaller and smaller, but because the analytics are changing, the privacy thing is changing, your open rates. If you look at everything, it's hard to track a moving target, but if you pick out a few things, so visits to the site on the day of the send or open rates, and track those year over year over year, then you can assess what is working and what isn't working.
Great. What are your thoughts on AI-enabled tools for creating content and customized newsletters?
Well, I mean, I'm a content creator, so I feel mixed about them. I mean, I don't know. It's also tricky because, so yeah, I think AI is a great tool when you have a small team or you need more capacity. I think in terms of creating content, I don't know that it can find, it isn't listening to what your users want. There's AI, like I said, that can clean your list. And I don't even use that because I want to know who's subscribing and unsubscribing. If I just let it go, it kind of goes into a black box and I don't see how all of that is being made and created. But if I am listening to the data and listening to the readers and subscribers, I could make an article that is AI created or just pull together a newsletter, but it seems like there's a loss of understanding of having that authentic, that was the other thing, have an authentic conversation. It's kind of hard to do that when you've created it using AI as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any creative ways to get clients to sign up for the newsletter initially? They're relaunching their newsletter campaign. and have very little resistance, but I'd like to be prepared when I get that dreaded response. I get too many emails.
Well, I mean, if somebody tells you, so I'll give some examples, but if somebody tells, this is a great example. If somebody tells you I get too many emails, that means that your newsletter isn't right for them and they're not, or your email isn't right for them. So they shouldn't be on your list. I get so many emails every day, and I still subscribe to newsletters that I know will provide value and for other email lists. So if they're saying that, it just means they're not the right fit. There are just so many ways to create lead gen for your email marketing. Some things that are really successful are like targeted gift guides around the holidays, checklists, toolkits, templates, behind the scenes of what you do. This is something that is like, there's a lot of examples when you Google to see what you can use for lead gen, but the one that is working less and less recently is contests. I know previously a lot of people had used contests for email signups and on Instagram, like and follow to enter, and that has seemed to have become less and less successful over time.
Yeah, I get those all the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Thanks for all this great info. I found lots of resources online for product-based email marketing, but have a harder time finding resources to guide email strategy for service-based organizations. Any resources or advice you have there?
I think most of my resources are general, but I will look into that. So I wonder if it's more B2B resources than B2C. So I think really good emails is a great source for inspiration, but I'll have to think about that.
Okay.
That's a good point. There is a lot that is product and sales based, but this more storytelling direction is really service based, or getting your, it's not just like a one-time purchase, but really getting your reader engaged in the business as well.
I mean, they may not buy on everyone on even the product and service side, but just reminding them that you're there, I think is pretty important.
Yeah.
Just not every other day.
Not every other day, no. And reminding them that you're there in a way that they're learning something, like they don't feel yelled at or sold to or any of that.
Yeah, I love that. What are your thoughts on paid newsletter subscription as an email marketing strategy?
Paid newsletter subscription, like a Substack?
Maybe Agatha can give us a little bit more in the Q&A box. Does that mean that they have to pay to get on the newsletter?
It could be Patreon or Substack where you subscribe.
I don't know. Hopefully Agatha gives us more comment.
I would say I would generally advise against that, because your email is like the top of your funnel where you're trying to get somebody engaged, and I wouldn't want to limit access to that by having to be paid. Unless you're giving away like a lot. That's the other thing. Don't give away too much in your email. If you're giving away like proprietary information or like all of your services, then I mean, that's like an email course then, which is a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw a question around pay or buying lists. Do you have any suggestions or good, bad, and ugly experiences with them?
Yeah, 100% do not ever buy a list. Like, there are so many. Most of the email service providers know when you do this. They can tell pretty quickly, and some of the larger providers like MailChimp will lock you out of your account pretty quickly. If you don't know to clean the lists and use a validation tool before you upload all of them, it'll just be like, why did you send an email that got all of these bounces back? So you also have a score for how clean your lists are and how well you're sending emails. So that will quickly degrade if you buy a list. And unless it's like the exact 100% exact same type of business, those users don't want to hear from you. I've never gotten a random email I didn't sign up for that I was like, oh, thank goodness, like somebody bought me on a list. I'm always like, where did this come from? Delete immediately. So don't buy a list. It's not the number of people on your list, it's the engagement. So you can have 100,000 people on your list and 2 people open it, and that means nothing. It's like you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I get strange emails all the time where I'm like, I didn't sign up for you, and I'm definitely not a lumberjack in Canada. Let's see. Do you ever work with email/text messaging combo?
Email and text. We've done some of that for advocacy campaigns. It is becoming more and more popular. We also use now with most of our tools like a text to sign up, which is great if you're speaking in an in-person speaking event with a lot of people. When that happens again, having text to sign up means that people can sign up very quickly from their phone. But again, that personalize your email, but don't personalize it too much. Text message also veers in that direction. Like whoever is opting in really needs to know that they're choosing to get into a text message, because otherwise, like if I all of a sudden got my text message feels more personal than my email. I don't know why, but getting random texts from brands is just an automatic unsubscribe as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have personal experience with this. I was impressed by a platform recently, and I was just poking around on it, and I'm like, oh yeah, cool, I gotta do all these things, put my email in, it's normal. They asked for my number, I was like, all right. And then I immediately got into a text thread with them, and I was like, I was not asking for a text, and I immediately said stop, and I was like, but then I wanted to engage with the computer platform, so I went in and asked the guy, how many people immediately say stop? And he's like, yeah, 90%.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that the 90% stops are so damaging to your brand versus the 10% who say yes, like that just is, not great.
So yeah, no, but I think it's good advice that you said to make sure it's very clear that you're gonna get a text from whoever it is.
I'm surprised they texted you that fast. That's kind of
immediately. Awesome. Well, Rebekah, we're at time, so I really want to thank you on behalf of everyone in attendance and everyone at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. Hopefully this was very helpful. I know based on some email marketing history that what you shared is dead on, really good advice. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that, and we'll follow up with the additional resources. Rebekah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Great. And for everyone still on, we hope to see you back for all of our great webinars that we have coming up soon. And wishing you all a happy weekend and a great week to come. See you all online soon.